Hi everyone, it's Jerry. I have a sharp game to share with you from round 1 of the 2025 US Chess Championship. This was played on October 12th. On the white end, the reigning champ, Fabiano Caruana. He's playing against his friend, a longtime second, Grigoriy Oparin. All right, on board we have Nimzo-Indian defense. Classical variation. D5, bishop questioned, bishop for knight exchange. Most popular is the recapture with the queen. We have b takes c instead. So just noting a couple differences with these captures on c3. Any lines connected with knight e4 now no longer hit with tempo. White center has been built somewhat now. B pawn converted to the c pawn, to a c pawn. D4 strengthened. In cases where black takes on c4, the queen remains in a spot to support a central advance. All right, black's reaction here is c6. A couple of the top moves it's looking at, castles and the other decision with the c pawn, 2 steps. In cases of c5 and a capture, that's no problem. Black can easily apply pressure, round that pawn up one way or another. Queen knight can both target that. We have a modest follow-up here. It's just one single step with the c pawn. In a way, maybe saying, if you capture on d5 to undouble your pawns, I'm there to recapture with the c pawn towards the center, and then there's a half-open c file. Maybe you can, as black tried to demonstrate, the queen post is maybe not so comfortable. All right, after c6, it is knight f3, b6. We have a pinned knight. Bishop immediately questioned. Pin maintained. Knights connected. Move 10, e3. This is only a 27-move game. Something goes wrong fast here for black. Let me throw this position to you as a pop quiz, multiple choice. Are you castling here, or are you developing your bishop? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, black ends up castling here. The evaluation on these two moves is around the same, plus 0.7, but practically speaking, significant difference between the two. We're going to see that after castles, black ends up in some serious hot water. Position turns very sharp, and it's very difficult to find accurate play to keep yourself in the game. Caruana's reaction here is g4. This pawn that has advanced to h6 is now going to allow white to crack open the g-file. g5 nearby. G-file will be opened up soon enough. Now, if black had delayed castling and gone with bishop b7, this isn't scary. This idea of g4, g5, hang on, the rook is still here, you'd be springing the rook to life. Also, not to mention if you're playing g4 here, you're asking for some trouble potentially on this diagonal with the bishop already being Kd2. So, a capture, push, bishop springs to life. So it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, in short, to play g4 in response to this. It may have been better to hold off on castling at this moment. We have castles here. g4 is the top move. Queen e8 unpins the knight. Now, I was curious. I'm always interested at these with the lines where player goes hunting for a pawn. So what happens if black breaks the pin like this, as weakening as this move is, and then swipes the g4 pawn? Well, what happens is you get destroyed. Your dark squares get broken down. h4 is there. The h file will open up. This is a disaster. This is a lost position already for black, reading more than +2. There isn't a good reaction to h4 here. Pawn takes, rook takes, targeting the knight, targeting the pawn. If the knight is supported in that position, you could still take the knight. Pawn takes, queen enters. It's a disaster. Also, supporting the knight here, takes, rook h5 is one way to collect the pawn, and the attack will continue. Very dangerous to play this lashing out move just to break the pin and then hunt a pawn. Not working out. Black's approach is to unpin the knight and put the queen in a position to support a central advance. Opponent playing on the wings, let's try and open up the center. The king is still there. Okay, we see g5. Pawn takes. How would you recapture here? Feel free to pause the video. Okay, in the game, knight captures g5 is played, and this is the correct way. If you take with the bishop, there is no pin here, and what you would be allowing is this knight to hop in the center, target the bishop. And because the knight is allowed to move to the center square, the f-pawn is now ready to move. So, for instance, if let's say the rook hops to the newly open g-file, there's f6. And this path opens up for the queen. Bishop h4, queen h5 is strong. Pressure on a couple minors. Also, if bishop f4, there's an e5 advance. Okay, it is not a good idea to allow this knight to hop in the center, so it's the knight that does the recapturing. There is a restriction on this piece. It has a responsibility. Defend mate on h7. Okay, white a little weakened now on this e5 square. With the knight on g5, black plays in the center. C takes d. C takes d. Bishop b5. And from here, black shuts down the center. Plays e4 here. Closes the center. Cuts off the communication between queen and knight on h7. Now, the top computer line, very difficult to come up with this, I would say. It's looking to gambit a pawn. Here's the top line. It wants to play a6, allow this fork, allow this pawn to be picked up. You can't take because of the mate. And it wants to go after this light square bishop exchange. At the end of this line, it calls it about plus 0.5. Okay. Difficult to come up with that line, I would say. We have instead a locked center. Things are pretty cozy for the king in the center. It's not a big deal to be uncastled here. Closed center. Let's play on the wings. Rook g1. Bishop b7. Once more, the computer wants a6, bishop c6, and rook a7 in this position. Okay, a6 not played. We have bishop b7, knight h3. This reveals a second pin in the position. This is already one, and here's now number 2. Bishop takes knight is now a threat. Follow-up, knight h7, and from here queen e2 is played. Queen ready to transfer towards the king side. h5 no longer secure, queen h5 nearby. Now, a move that may be very tempting here is queen a4. What are you doing as black to deal with this pin? Black would have a move in response to queen a4. Queen c6 is there. And it would not be a good idea to swipe the knight. Queen takes c3 is there. Let me show you what this would look like. Queen takes c3. Ready to win the rook next with check, and that's how it says you should play. King f1, allow the rook to be captured. Here's the thing. If you step up as white in this position, you're lost. Lost because there's a check. Bishop a6. Now we're looking at checkmate on e2, and there's still this idea nearby. Rook is ready to fall with check. My point, this is a resource by black. You can meet queen a4 with queen c8. We have here queen e2, targets two weak points in white's position, c3 directly, h3 indirectly. King d2. This is a perfect way to defend c3. It's not an inconvenience whatsoever. This is a defensive move, and also, in a way, an attacking move, oddly enough. With king d2, the rooks are connected, and what's already coming to mind here is a rook sacrifice on g7, the other one to follow. There's plenty of attacking pieces near the black king where you could go for this type of sacrifice. What we're seeing in this position is that the white pieces, the white rooks in particular, are playing and the black rooks are not. This is a big problem for black. Now, from here we have knight c5, and pawn takes knight to follow. Knight c5 is looking at a fork on b3. Queen's ready to take the knight. That's what we see in the game. Queen captures knight. What would happen if black tried something different, tried to hold things together on the king side? Let's say this knight drifted towards the king side here. This opens up the queen to f5. Okay, let's say the knight is saved here. What would you do here now as black? White's ready to break the king side right down. So for instance, if g6 is played here, the reason to play g6 is to fight for control over h5. If you don't play g6 here, let's say a6 is played, you could ignore this threat. Watch how fast this would hit. Capture on f6 and go right after these dark squares. Knight takes knight, queen takes knight, no time to take the bishop. Take the bishop here, that's where we see a sacrifice. King takes, rook enters, king f6, queen e5, checkmate. Also, if this was the position right here, and instead of g6, queen f5 is played, a strong continuation is to go for bishop for knight, and then play h4. And this paves the way for a wonderful pivot for the rook on g5, where it is definitely functioning like a rook, making way for that final piece to enter in on the attack. This is crushing. Okay, what we have in this game is knight c5. Pawn takes knight, queen takes knight, queen h5. Offensive and defensive move. Defend the bishop, and you're also setting up rook captures pawn, followed by bishop f6 check, and the queen is lost. There's also an idea to take and forget about the queen. You go right after the king. Land a check, king h8, bishop f6 would be checkmate. Knight in that position would be pinned. So this is serious. Serious queen post here. Black's reply is g6. Now, if black gets out of any tricks here on the h-file, let's say the queen retreats, there's a slick move available to white here, namely bishop d7, and this would deflect the queen from the 6th rank. If queen captures bishop, this is where you see the activity of the white rooks shine. Rook captures pawn is there. The other rook gets to the g-file, and here is a pretty checkmate. Okay, we don't see queen e6, it is g6. There is no threat to the queen here. The pawn is pinned. We have c6. Computer says you could already go in for this sacrifice and be winning, but c6, very clean approach. c6 kicks this bishop back home. And now that it's back home, there is a disconnect between the rooks. This will interfere with potential defensive resource for black along the g-file. This rook on a8 does not play, does not control a single square on the king side now. Only at this point, only after kicking the bishop back, do we see a sacrifice on g6, follow up rook g1. How are you supposed to defend mate on g7? The try here is with bishop g4. You do not have rook g8 here. If the bishop was still on b7, you could think about rook to g8 there. Bishop g4 interferes with the battery and connects the rooks. Rook captures bishop, and from here, rook f7. Now, if black tried something different here, rook g8, there is bishop f6 check, queen captures knight check, and queen h4, picking up the queen. You have the support there. Okay, black's try in this game is rook f7, saying if you capture my rook, I take yours. Still says that that is winning for white, with bishop g3 to follow, looking to get on this diagonal. But Caruana says I can just play bishop g3 right now. This right here is move 27. Black resigns. There's no good way to meet bishop e5 next. This is going to be deadly. Both black rooks in this final position have a responsibility. Neither like it, but they must watch over g8 and g7, two mates right around the corner. So playing here or here, trying to hold up bishop e5, the bishop can still go there. Crushing game here by Caruana. I believe a thing or two that players will reflect on with this game here. This h6 move, maybe you don't include h6 in this position. Maybe you go ahead and connect knights or castle. We're seeing that h6 and too early a castling, allowing g4, g5. Very difficult to handle. This is one thing that may be thought of after the game, and another even dating all the way back with this modest approach, just going one step rather than two. More energetic reply at this early stage may have been called for. Just some food for thought. Anyhow, your thoughts with this one, feel free as usual to leave any feedback to this video in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe took a thing or two away. That's all for now. Take care.